High Fidelity is the latest adaptation of the Nick Hornby novel, made famous 20 years ago with the Stephen Frears film, and now reimagined with a whole new cast headed up by Zoe Kravitz as an unlucky in love record store owner. I'm Rob Licuria, senior editor here at Gold Derby, and I'm here with the show's co-creator Sarah Kucserka, who alongside Veronica West has brought this story to life for a brand new audience. Sarah, why did you decide to revive and reimagine High Fidelity?
High Fidelity was a book that I read when it first came out, Veronica as well, and it was a story that had always resonated very deeply with us, just that place that you are when you think you're an adult, but you're still struggling to get it right, basically. And it was a world that we kept coming back to over and over again, just for pure pleasure. And then a few years ago, we had one of those, what are we doing here? What do we want out of our careers moments? And we were talking about what a dream project would be for us. And High Fidelity was number one on that list, and actually doing High Fidelity with a woman, which we really were very adamant about. We didn't want this to be a direct version of the movie or of the book. And we also felt like the thing that hadn't been told is that while men often feel the way that Rob does in the book, women do just as often. And so for us, that was kind of the driving force in getting it out there.
I love it how it's this show is, despite the source material, it's about women, it's by women, it's about women of colour.
Yeah.
Something really quite different. The show is very diverse, but even though in this day and age of wokeness, it was difficult to get that concept off the ground.
Really, we were incredibly lucky. Every time that we pitched this show to somebody, whether it was to our producing partners at Midnight Radio or the studio or the network, every time we said, we want to do this with a woman, that's what makes it special. That's what makes it different than the book or the movie. And we really feel like doing it with a woman of color makes it an even more unique story to tell in the landscape. And so for us, we were really lucky. We didn't get any pushback at any stage from it. And I think that that was just a huge testament to the way that television and streaming are shifting right now.
Yeah, like the way we consume and devour pop culture these days has changed so much. Like streaming has taken over to some extent, and even before this time when we were all at home. And I've spoken with so many people who work with Hulu in particular who appear to be so great to work with. How has it changed the way you've worked over the last few projects that you've worked on? How has working with Hulu been a different thing than what you've done before?
So High Fidelity is the first streaming project that Veronica and I had done. We'd worked exclusively in broadcast before that and done shows that were traditionally 22 episodes. And those kind of shows, it's all about keeping the train running. And with streaming shows and cable shows, there's a little bit more room to breathe and room to grow the story, and have the opportunity to lay out an entire season, even write an entire season, and then make changes to it before and as you're starting to shoot. It's a really unique thing to have that time and that luxury of really getting to know your characters. And I think it's incredibly freeing as a writer to develop something and then realize that maybe it's not exactly what you thought it was, and you have a chance to go back and make it better.
Yeah, I think it obviously really works to have Zoe on board. I love the connection between her and mother, obviously, from the film. But how did she come on board? It would have been such a different show without her.
Yeah, at this point, I can't imagine what this show would have been like without her. She was very much like the top of our list. I remember I had a notebook and I wrote down like the Rob, dream casting list, and at the top is Zoe Kravitz. Would she ever do it? ? Her mom was in the movie ? And we thought, okay, she'll either love it and have that connection to it, or she'll not want to touch it. We were incredibly lucky. She loved it. She loved the movie growing up, and really identified with the story very much. I can't imagine what it would be like without her. She brought so much of herself to the character and the storytelling, and she really was integral even from the start in telling the story. We were really lucky. She came on board incredibly early. So just after we had written a pilot, basically.
Yeah, it really works to have her on there. The whole fact that her mum was on the movie was a nice novelty to begin with, but that's forgotten very quickly because she really owns the role. Was there any particular role that you found the most difficult or challenging to cast and get right?
Yes, absolutely. The hardest role to cast was, from the start, and we knew it would be, was the Charisse role. It was the Barry role in the movie, played by Jack Black, and it was so memorable. It was his breakout role, and he really brought an incredibly unique energy to it. And we knew from the start that most people would want to try and imitate that character rather than make it their own. And Divine Joy Randolph was the first person who came in. I mean, we saw hundreds and hundreds of people, and she was the first person who came in, and 5 seconds into her casting tape, it was like, this is it. She's the woman. She has it. She's embodying all of the joy that we wanted that character to bring. And we were so lucky to find her.
Yeah, I spoke to her at length a few weeks ago, and she mentioned how important it was for her to move away from stereotypes and tropes. Like, Charisse I expected her to be the sassy black lady character that loves R&B, right? That's what we think we're going to get. We don't get that. But she's actually a real human being, and she's my favorite character. I thought she was so funny and yet so endearing. And thank you for Simon. He's not the flamboyant gay sidekick. These people are real. Where do you find the inspiration for these unique lived-in type characters apart from the book and the movie?
A lot of the inspiration for the characters came from our own lives, from ourselves and people that we had met. The Simon character is loosely based on a friend of ours, and the Charisse character is kind of an amalgamation of people, and then also just that person that you would love to hang out with, to be kind of like stuck in a bunker with, and the bunker being, a basement record store. And I think that she really brought that amazing energy. We were really conscious of the fact that we did not want to fall into any stereotypes with any of the characters in this show, and that to us, the most important thing in the storytelling was showing the multiple dimensions of every kind of person in the world, and really giving people an unexpected version of somebody, although very much like somebody that they probably know. And
coupled with that, the show feels very lived in and authentic. And we talked a bit with Divine about that. See, I already think she's the
I know. They become their characters.
She talked about how Zoe was very keen on making the show feel authentic and real, up to the coffee mug and things like that. Obviously that was very important for you and Veronica to get right. But what other things are you doing, or what are you employing to make this show feel lived in and real? Because I don't really know how to put my finger on it, but I'm not a showrunner. I'm a writer. So what are you doing to make it feel real?
I think that what makes it feel real is a spectrum of things. I mean, for us, it's making sure that we hire people in every department that get that vision and understand what it is to be somebody in your 30s in Brooklyn, kind of living both an amazingly wonderful life, but also the struggle that everybody has at that age, and embodying all of the joy and the pain that go along with it. Our production designer, Almi Tricori, was fantastic. She had a wonderful vision for what the show should look like, what our spaces should look like, the colors, the textures. Carmen Cabana, who was our DP, was really intent on making sure that we got the vibrancy of New York on camera. And that is why I think we spent so much time in the outdoors. We were on location a lot in this show, and I think that it made New York, it made Brooklyn a character, which was our intent from the start, and it really came across in the final product, I think. And that was something I'm just incredibly proud of our entire team pulling off.
Was there ever any doubt that you wouldn't have Rob breaking the fourth wall? Was that something that you wanted from the get-go to make that part of your show as well?
We knew that we wanted the Rob character in some way, shape, or form to have an interaction with the audience. We briefly toyed with the idea of just doing it as voiceover, but it didn't feel intimate enough to us. And I think that the wonderful thing that Stephen Frears and John Cusack and that whole team did with the movie was to create the direct-to-camera conversations that the Rob character has, and that is one of the things that we wanted to employ and understood so much why they did it, because the character of Rob, as it is written in the book, but also as we wrote it, is an incredibly internal character, and is somebody that really is living this life inside their own head a lot. And it was just the best and smartest way to kind of create that bond with our audience.
Yeah, as soon as it started happening, I was like, okay, all right, this is exactly what happens in the books, is what's happening in the movie. But then I started to look forward to it. So yeah, there is that bond with Rob, and sharing, really personal stuff with me. It's like we're having a dialogue, and that's, I think, really well. Could we maybe just talk about a couple of the highlights from season 1 specifically? Because why not? We're here. The double date with Mack and Clyde with Rob as well was so uncomfortable. It was a real highlight for me. Have you got any particular stories or anything to share from shooting those particular scenes or writing them?
Writing the scenes, it is one of the things that we knew was going to be the hardest thing to pull off, was creating these two characters of Mack and Clyde and making them both incredibly viable romantic interests for Rob, but not feeling anything alike, because I think that what makes them so special is that they offer really different worlds and lives to Rob. And to me, we really knew from the moment we started writing it, to the casting of it, to the directing of it, that if we didn't have that in mind at every juncture, we wouldn't end up with two characters who got us to the point at the end of the season where you're asking yourself, who is she going to? And that we knew that that's what we wanted the end of our season to be from the start. And so we just kind of built those two out. Obviously, the 7th episode is the one where they kind of meet for that first time and they are sizing each other up. And I love that the actors found a way and found places to trade off who was kind of in control of a moment. And that they were almost more aware of that than Rob was, which to me kind of subverts the romantic comedy stereotype, where usually it's the woman who's the most aware of what the romantic dynamic is between this triangle. So to me, that it was great to kind of have the guys in that traditionally female space.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I really appreciated having the men be so emotionally intelligent and Rob so oblivious or just wrong. And maybe it's because I've got a soft spot for Mack. I loved him in the LA, Kingsley in the LA. And I think Jake as Clyde is like a revelation. I'm speaking to him next week, and I didn't really know anything about this actor, but he really pulls this character off. Like, he's so endearing, but he's not like prickly. Like, what was the key in making Jake the guy that you kind of were rooting for and to get together with Rob?
The key to that, I think, was having an actor that came in with the confidence to take what on the page somebody could easily perceive as a character that is weak or one-dimensional or not aggressive enough or something like that, as one might traditionally perceive a male character in that way, and to own it and to find that. And when we talked to Jake, the very first time we talked to him, he'd read the script and he was like, I love this. Tell me how I'm not just like the wallpaper in this series. And I was like, that is absolutely a great question. And it's the question that I think every female actor has asked throughout time. But we actually had, kind of the answer of, we want there to be a layer to Clyde that is just beneath the surface. And I think you see it for the first time in 107 near the end, the episode where it's the last hurrah. And he's talking to Zoe, to Rob, and he says, like, I've done this before, I've made this mistake before. And you're just like, oh, there's more here than you think.
Yeah.
Small children running around us.
Oh, no, look. We're just like kids everywhere, right? Yeah, that's really important, I think, too. Like, this show is like sneakily subversive because it's so entertaining and light and beautiful to listen to and watch, but you're subverting a lot of expectation, and that's so interesting to me. Speaking of, probably my favorite moment was in the season finale when Charisse receives the package. All the walls come down. And she's obviously built them up over years, and she's very broken, maybe. I don't know. We'll find out. And she shows her vulnerability. I remember after that scene, I looked at my wife and I was just like, can you believe this actor? Like, she's incredible. And I told all that to Divine, and she had a lot to say about how important that scene was for her. But what about you? Like, obviously you must have been happy how it came off, sorry.
I did. It was one of the last scenes that we shot too, and I had this scene in, my head. Veronica and I had this scene. We knew that that's where we wanted to kind of go and take Charisse on her journey for the season. We really didn't want every character, particularly every female character, to have their journey be about romance. Mm-hmm. And to us, there was really something about somebody who lives such a seemingly secure life, but has this incredibly deep insecurity that they're carrying with them. And the moment that they allow themselves to be vulnerable and try is just, to me, it's when you see a person for the first time for all that they are. And oh my goodness, did Divine bring that to that moment. I absolutely got teary on stage when she started singing, and when she opened that box, or when she opened the guitar case and saw what it was. And to me, that was really one of my top 5 favorite moments of the entire first season.
Absolutely. It was my number one, and I've got plenty of others. But the only other question I have for you before we wrap up is, obviously, no one's doing anything right now because everybody's staying at home. But once all this is said and done and things settle down, will there be a season 2, or are you still waiting for the go-ahead?
We are still waiting for the go-ahead on that, but we're really hopeful. It is, I think, the response, and particularly with everything that's been going on in New York, to have so many people say, I loved watching this show. It reminded me of when I could go outside and when I could go to my favorite places, because we did spend so much time on the streets of Brooklyn, that I just really hope that we can get back there and give the community everything that they gave us for season 1.
Well, fingers crossed that Hulu gives you the seal of approval and you can move forward to season 2. But in the meantime, thank you, Sarah, for your time. It was such a joy to watch the show, and thanks for sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me. This was really, really wonderful. So please thank your audience and everyone for me.
Will do. Now, everybody, while you're at home, go to Gold Derby, make your predictions. You might want to predict High Fidelity at the Emmys, and then click subscribe. Watch all of our great contender chats. We've got heaps of them, and they're all very entertaining and very insightful.